forgot about these technical issues. We're good. So we've just come back and we just had some items raised on additional agenda items that we just wanted to have a general discussion over. So I'm going to go through them in order of Council Kaumatua, number one, that's just popped up, the Māori Ward, Te Whakaminenga, and the representation review. So in terms of the Council Kaumatua, as we know, Koro Don has retired, but in terms of tikanga, he is always welcome around this table, should he wish to join. But we're mindful that has not been another appointment made. So what I did want to do is just, and Anna's just writing up a motion. Can you put that up on screen?
Just sent it through now.
Yeah.
Give her a minute.
And it's just around endorsing the iwi partnerships team to begin the process of that appointment. So I believe it's coming up. It's coming up. Here we come. So what I'm proposing is that we pass the motion here that Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti endorse the iwi partnerships team to begin the process of appointing the Council Kaumatua, and notes that a report will be brought back to the next Te Whakaminenga meeting, hui, with potential Kaumatua for endorsement to the Council. So I'm just wondering if we have any comments on that from online or around the table.
Yeah, first of all, just the wording. I'm not sure what to council means. Could just take that out. It won't be a council decision.
For endorsement. Yeah. And I think if we add in Kaumatua Tāne and Kaumatua Wahine. Yeah. Rawere, you have a hand raised there?
We transferred them right after.
Rawere, do you have anything to add to that?
Kia ora. I know process. I just want to understand what the process is you're proposing. Given we all three art whanaunga have kaunihera kamātua, what is the proposed process for appointing the council kamātua?
Kia ora Rawere. There isn't currently a process, in all honesty. Koro Don was here for over 20 years. So in Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti, this committee endorsing us to go and start that mahi is to have a conversation with you all at the marae trustee level, I think is what was recommended a while ago when we had a conversation at our art forum huis, which we will be commencing again at some stage next week, with checking with your availability. So at this point there is no written template in terms of how this rolls, but it will be, it'll come from our team in terms of how we go about that. So then we're not in this predicament in the future.
Look, just one suggestion is I would approach our tikanga that Wakarongatai marae is we have a kaunihera kamātua set up that would be approached first for their feedback, guidance, and
Kia ora.
marae trustees of Waikanai would endorse that or support that, tōku that.
Ka pai, kia ora.
Yeah.
Great. So we have no other comments online. Mayor Janet? Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think we're just going to take our time and feel our way through this process and just make sure that we start to become a little bit more clear about what the role of the kaumātua is, how it intersects with the role of the iwi partnerships team, how it fits in with and any kind of role within Te Whakaminenga. So there's quite a lot to kind of work through because it's been just quite a fluid thing, because we had 3 kaumātua when I was a community board member. Now we're down to 1, and so we never really we haven't had to do this for a while, and I think it's an opportunity just to really work carefully with our iwi partners, through the iwi partnerships team, and just have a bit more of an understanding about what this role means within the context of our bigger iwi partnerships team after the review of Te Whakaminenga. And there's no hurry because we've got plenty of support and capability that's available to us as governance in the meantime. So we'll just feel our way through, I think, and just make sure that we're really careful with how we go through the process.
Martin. Yep.
Yeah, through Madam Chair, 2 points I wanted to make. First one was taking on board what Mayor Janet was just saying, but I do think there's just a little bit of there is a bit of urgency there because we don't have one in that role at the moment. After saying that, fully appreciate and respect the point of view that we need to get an understanding of the role and what's involved as such as well, just for the persons in the role really, so that they know what they're entitled to. I just wanted to, you mentioned the Kaumatua Wahine, and I'm under the impression we sort of have one in that space, being Lois. And I don't know if that's been official or not, but I'm just wondering whether there's any support around that position that needs to be in place now with regards to there's already potentially a person in that role, or whether that all needs to be tidied off as part of this process.
Yeah, it needs to be tidied up as part of this process, as we have utilised Auntie Lois's skills on an ad hoc basis.
Yeah.
So respectfully for her, we need to square that up.
I guess that's what I was referring
Yeah.
to, because that leads to from that person and perhaps a thinking or an understanding of what they are doing.
Yes, that's right.
But be good to either formalise that or not, whatever the process is, just to give that certainty moving forward.
Yeah, kia ora.
And just to add, so this will, behind this, the council process will sit a tikanga process. And this is basically just to get that conversation started. The whole point of this motion is to get that conversation started so that we can start on that journey. And once we get into the process, then we'll be mindful of the 2 things happening, and the process will be dictated by those.
I guess, just as a follow-up to my question, sorry, Madam Chair, is there liaison going on with Lois to keep her informed as such?
I think we've got a hui with her next week. I've seen something in my calendar.
Yep.
Maybe. I can follow up. I'll follow up with her.
Yeah,
I've
again,
had
it's just that-
conversations with her
It's
about
just
it.
that touchy-feely, just keeping it rather than just sort of park that here sort of stuff and just
Yeah.
left to float, so to speak.
Right, so just after the reworded motion, can you read that out, Anna? Or do I read that out? I just need my glasses. That Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti endorse the iwi partnerships team to begin the process of appointing the council kaumātua tāne kaumātua wahine, and notes that a report will be brought back to the next Te Whakaminenga meeting with potential kaumātua for endorsement. So I'd like to move that. Can I have a seconder, please? Martin, second. All agreed? Aye. Right. So we'll leave that there. The second general business that was raised, and it's more a noting and probably a conversation that has to happen in terms of the Māori ward and what our comms plan is. So I just wanted to raise it here because we know the issues that sit around this, and just kind of front footing. what that looks like, and it's probably a discussion that we need to have with Dem Services, and potentially having that discussion and having them bring a report back, whether that's to the next Te Whakaminenga hui, or whether that's an internal well, not an internal conversation, a conversation that can be liaised through the iwi partnership team in our iwi forum, because I think it is of urgency that we kind of get a consolidated approach to how we're going to manage this process, given the attention that it gets. So unless anyone else has anything to add, that's really all I wanted noted here at this hui. Martin?
Yeah, look, through Madam Chair, two things I wouldn't mind adding. One, it's a round process. It would be great for council to stand up some sort of briefing into what might be the role or perceived role. I mean, at the end of the day, whoever comes into it will make the role their own, and it'll be as it is, just like we all do as councillors. But if people are looking at putting their hand up, then being able to get understanding what that might entail. The other one is and I appreciate everybody else who's an elected member will appreciate this. The biggest issue you have running for council is profile. So how do you get in front of the constituents that you want to get in front of with regards to introducing yourself and et cetera, et cetera. That tends to be a grey power rollout, but it's always been an issue with regards to who puts these sorts of things on and in the community and for what purpose and et cetera, et cetera. And generally, councillors will take any opportunity to stand in front of people and sell themselves, for want of a better way of putting it. But from the Māori ward perspective, that could be something that each iwi might be interested in facilitating in their rohi as such, so that there is a nice pathway for profile for that person. As such, and I just wanted to put it out there for consideration now, so that it's not something that's sort of like done last minute. Doesn't work for this sort of thing. You've got to sort of book the halls and that sort of scenario. And sometimes it can actually also be done, in my opinion, too far out. The grey power one happens about 6 weeks out from the actual election. So by the time you actually get around to the election, everyone's going, oh, how do I hear from a candidate? And in actual fact, there's no one putting on anything. So there can be a leeway for doing some of those interactions early on in the process, but also closer to the voting date as well. And certainly statistics that I was quite surprised about was 5,000 people, 5,000 people registered on the Māori voting roll from a national perspective, and in fact we've got 14,500 people in the last Statistics New Zealand survey that said that they identify as Māori as well. So I think there could be quite an interest with that group. That's a significant chunk of the community, but it's quite a specific role per se, and it could get. I don't want to lead into any thoughts with regards to what might or might not be, but in an open forum as such, the Māori ward could become a contentious conversation point, shall we say. It'd be quite nice to have some iwi orientated or Māori orientated spaces with regards to that interaction for that particular role. Just my thoughts.
Great, I think that's a great idea, and especially around the education, so that I would think would be part of talking to what the plan looks like now and putting those bits in, because it's definitely a learning curve, as I've found out coming into this space, and obviously it depends on the experience of the candidates that are running. Mayor Janet.
Yeah, I'd endorse that. Having been at the Grey Power candidates meetings, I don't know that that'd be a very safe space for our Māori ward candidates. I'll just say that. Yeah, I've been to an electorate. There's a precedent for all this, because I went to an incredible debate for the Māori electorate one time at Whakaminenga Marae, and yeah, there was an incredible conversation between Adrian Ruriwhi and Debbie Ngare Wapaka. Absolutely mind-blowing, and what a great space, and packed out with people. So there was definitely interest for the general election. So I'd say there'd be interest for this as well. So yeah, I think that's a really, really good suggestion, and really important to create those safe spaces for those candidates, and certainly for us as council, communicating that there are two things going on. The first thing is that we're electing a Māori ward councillor, and the second thing, which is a separate process, is we're having a referendum on whether to continue with that at the next election. And it's really important to make that really clear to people, because I'm not sure that it's clear right now.
Yes.
So it's something that we need to take on board as a councillor as well. And that pre-election induction that you mentioned, Martin, I think that's really important too. The pre-election kind of induction for all candidates, but particularly for the Māori ward candidate. So I'd endorse all of that.
Yes, no, definitely education, and you're right, there is a lot of confusion out there about what's going on, who can vote for what, so that whole education piece is going to be critical, and we're just suggesting, do you want to comment on any of that, Oriwe, now, because I know you're in the working group, you can leave it till later, but we were just talking about that hosting of those conversations for the marae candidates and what that looks like. But if you've got anything to add, being in the working group.
I think we're in the early stages, but I can't give an immediate response, but I can follow up with
Great.
further information.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
And we have also a question from Rawiri online, or a comment. Oh, can you unmute Rawiri? Still can't quite hear you.
Always happens at some stage. Kia ora, look, yeah, I'm one of those who needs to be educated on that process, and probably I need to liaise with the working group on that. But so yeah, there's the election, continuing with the election of a candidate for the Māori ward, and then there's a referendum. Which comes first? Do you have to have the referendum to actually be able to hold the election? And if you do hold the election at the same time, and the referendum goes against it, what then? So you just want to understand the focus and process there.
Yeah.
Hey, kia ora Rauri. So the Māori ward, correct me if I'm wrong, councillors, is confirmed for this next triennium with the vote that passed last year from council. The referendum will be a himomo poll, like it's like a poll within your voting paper envelope. So it's all going to come in one package, and you'll have the opportunity, if you're on the Māori roll, to vote for your Māori ward and the mayor, and then also vote in the referendum whether or not you support the Māori ward seat at council for the next 2 trienniums after this. Everyone can. Oh, everyone's voting on the referendum. Yes, sorry, that's right. So doesn't matter what role you're on, everybody's voting in the referendum about whether or not we're going to keep the Māori ward past this next triennium. Is that right?
Right, so we will get a Māori ward
Yes.
running for the next triennium.
Yes, that's
But
correct.
it could be voted out by a referendum for the following.
Kia ora, yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, so we'll have a conversation about that. But so that's all I wanted to put at this meeting about the Māori ward, just make sure that we're on top of that. And the next one, oh, Michael. I'm just navigating this. Michael.
That's right, thank you. Kim, look, Rawe's comment highlights the difficulty we have in our community about this. From our northern area, I can't speak so much for Otaki, and Cam will have the observation on this, but certainly in the rural part of Te Horo and Waikanai, there is confusion because there's going to be 2 votes. There's that confusion. Are we actually voting for a Māori ward councillor at this next election in Kāpiti? And we are. So some comms on this, I think, would be really helpful. And I know we talked in the break that this is something that you're going to address and look into, and how we navigate through that. And us elected members are trying to do our bit over the next 2 or 3 months, because we're heading into nominations opening up in July. So not far away. that we need to understand how this is happening, because it's kind of new territory for this district. And I hope that we will also rally people out to come out in great numbers to support the referendum, that it continues past this next triennium as well. So I just wanted to lay that in the discussion.
Kia ora. So that's what we're talking about here, is that education, because we're all mindful. The elections come around very quickly, and the ball has already started rolling on that, and mindful of the confusion that is out there. May I say, regardless of the mass information that has been out there, there is still huge confusion. So we just need to clear that up. So the next item for general business, Martin, you raised Te Whakaminenga and the representation review. I wonder if you want to speak to that first, and then we can have an open discussion about that.
Yep. So yeah, there's a point of confusion. This has nothing to do with representation or review. Representation
sorry,
review
it's
is
not,
about
yeah. No, it isn't.
but it just goes to show you the
Wordings.
well, the confusion out there with regards to how we work, I dare say, as a council with regards to our relationship with iwi Māori as such, which I think is a very positive space. But I think it needs a little bit of my personal opinion, it needs a little bit of a tidy up with regards to roles, definitions, et cetera, and I think having the iwi team has been a great progressive step with regards to the capacity to have these sorts of conversations and to work through these sorts of issues. First thing I wanted to say, though, so what I'm talking about is the iwi representation at the council tables and committees. Now, first thing I want to clarify is that I don't have an issue around the iwi representation as such. That's not the issue here. It's just whether it's fit for purpose, and what does fit for purpose look like. And the reason I say that is when this came to the council in the last triennium, from my perspective, there was pretty much no lead in. There was no workshops, no briefings, and it was an officer's response to a Te Tiawa Ki Whakarongotai report from around 2017, as such, and it was again that scenario of a paper coming to the table and we were all getting told what's happening rather than what I would have considered to be a constructive dialogue with all parties concerned. And again, I'm not poking sticks or anything like that. It's done. We've got the situation in place, but there's certainly a conversation at the council table with regards to whether it's fit for purpose, whether it needs to be reviewed or looked at. The general consensus is that yes, it does need to be reviewed, that it's not fit for purpose. And I guess what I'm asking is there a process with regards to addressing that? And if so, what is that process as such? And to be brutally honest, one of the reasons I'm also bringing it up, and it does tie into the elections a bit as well, is I think council's very, very exposed in this space with regards to this process and the disruptive sort of approach that's, in my opinion, going to be a part of this election process. I'm quite keen to get that shut down as a pathway for contention, shall we say, before this starts getting talked to in the public arena, which I can't see any reason why that won't happen. And I dare say it could be quite brutal in the public arena as well if we don't capture the narrative or sort that out now. So that's just my view. I'm bringing that up here. I've brought it up at council, but I guess from the perspective of Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti, which from my perspective is a governance relationship between KCDC and the Art Confederation, I'm just very interested in the views of TWOC with regards to whether it is fit for purpose or whether we do need to be looking at that relationship as such. Relationships, that's not the right word. We've already got the relationship. It's whether the kaupapa, whether that kaupapa is currently relevant.
So I can, sorry.
Can I just add a little
Yes, you
to
can.
that, just for clarification? So we have the arrangements that we have, which we're nearly at the end of the triennium, so they'll probably sit as they'll sit as they are, but then everything dissolves after that, and so it's up to the next council to decide what the arrangements are going forward for the next triennium with the Māori ward in place too. So I think it's a good time to be raising this, so there's time to prepare some communication around that at the same time as we communicate around the Māori ward, because people they mush them together. You know, why do we need iwi representation when we've got a Māori ward? They do get mushed together, so it's important that we're clear about that communication, that each council decides on its own representation arrangements. And that's part of that. They're not elected. It's a different kind of position. And also just to have this lead in, to have a think about ourselves, how, if we're sitting around this table, you will be, iwi will be, but if we're sitting around this table, what might we start thinking about what that next triennium might look like? And it's February now, we've got another couple of meetings and then we'll be out of action. So it seems like it's early in the year to be having this conversation, but actually it's a good time just to plant the kākano and just begin the conversation potentially, so that we can have a sensible conversation about it as we move through the election process.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Just thinking about this, because it has been asked quite a few times, and we don't seem, even though I feel it's been answered, we don't seem to be landing any clarity. So as you know, we are in the process of carrying out a review of Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti. And in that process, so for me, the founding document starts with the partnership agreement and the arrangement. And that was put in place, and Te Whakaminenga was put in place, and then things have changed and morphed, and we're completely, now we've got a Māori ward. So it's all very, things are changing, and we have to reassess what that means for the old position and the mechanics that were put in place for iwi engagement. So in terms of what we're talking about, representation around the table, if I go back to the partnership arrangement, the first couple of wānanga that we've had focus on that arrangement, because that is where the relationship sits. That is where we sit together and we decide as partners what we expect out of each other, what we want, how we want this partnership to work. So we need to understand that before we go to the next step, which is what are the mechanics of upholding that document that we've both agreed to. So it starts there, and then the representation around the table, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is the mechanics of how we uphold that partnership agreement. So that will become the next phase after we agree, because we can't really speak to the mechanics and the representation and who sits on what committee until we understand what our commitments are to each other at a higher level. So my understanding was that was the next phase. So once that review is complete, and it was planned to be completed before elections, once that review is completed, we might find the answers to that. But to your question, Martin, that is in the process of that review. It is not just about that single document, but that document is the founding document that we need to say, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that that partnership agreement is upheld? And what that looks like, we will not know until that review is complete. Because remembering, we've gone from solely Te Whakaminenga to Te Whakaminenga plus representation around the table, now adding in the Māori ward. So that has morphed very quickly. And yeah, so I suppose I can't, and maybe you can't answer any questions about representation around the table until that is complete. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just some tautoko ngā kōrero, but I just think that we should note that there is an extra wānanga workshop that we've got scheduled. When is it, whatever? 4th of March, and then May. So Darren has also spoken to me about the same kaupapa, and I think that there, in light of the current question, is that there's a big element of iwi engagement and councillor engagement that we need to do to answer that question on how it's going to look. So also respecting that the next council, however that looks, will determine how they would like the mechanics, but we would like to have from iwi partnerships and iwi reps on Te Whakaminenga or Kāpiti something to recommend in terms of the engagement that we've undertaken to answer how the mechanics sit alongside the new partnership agreement document.
And that's
That
where
makes
we'll
sense.
figure out if the current regime as we have it is fit for purpose. But because that TWOP document is, may I say, ancient, we need to revisit what we want to achieve as partners before we can even think about what that looks like on the ground. And I just want to speak to, so the council exposure, and I understand where you're coming from in terms of the council exposure to this, and it's in the political arena, and we have a lot of conversations going on about Māori representation in general across Aotearoa. And so my reply to this is nothing new to us. So this is a world we have lived in for many, many years. So probably what I'm saying is, for me, it's not something that's just popped up. This is our norm. So we're probably a bit more not open to it, but, you know, we're quite used to this kind of exposure. And I suppose the difference is now that exposure is now being rolled out to our partners, and you're starting to feel the weight of it. Not to say that, you know, I don't know how to say this eloquently, but this has been our world for many years, and now it's affecting everyone else, and everyone else is starting to feel the brunt of it, and everyone else is starting to say, how do we handle it? Well, you handle it, basically. You have to handle it, you have to roll it out, but preparation and education is key in that, and that's what I think you're asking, Martin, just on what it is that we are saying as councillors, as partners that sit around this table. Help us to understand what this looks like so we can champion it as well.
That's a very interesting perspective, Kim, and I guess this is part of what the conversation is about, is expanding perspective and expanding understanding as well, and that sort of stuff. And I would certainly, it's great that the iwi team's looking at engaging with iwi and councillors, but I think there's a platform there where, from a governance level, it'd be quite nice if governance was actually talking to marae trustees, or governance in relation to iwi as well, with regards to that sort of a general wānanga, if you like, where it is, some of these things are thrown on the table for us to all thrash out, and we all take the bruises potentially with regards to that conversation both ways, as such. Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective with regards to that exposure and how to handle it. I guess one of the two key points I'd point out is that this particular council hasn't had the opportunity to review that. It came in on the last council. So I do hear what you're saying, but also respecting there's actually no process around this as such. And this is, again, why we have an iwi team here now. We are creating process around these things, which is great, which will be fantastic when it's in place. The problem is we've got that interlude in between as such. And I can, again, I'm just thinking, again, hat on, hat off, I'm just thinking solely from the perspective of a campaigning and people that will campaign and that sort of stuff. And I can just potentially see this as being something that's taken and run with by certain interest groups, if you like, that will just add to that division. But appreciate what you're saying with regards to that's just the way it is at times as well, and we have to deal with that. But wanted to bring it up because this is something that, from a councillor perspective, has been something that's been front of mind with regards to a lot of conversations, and we're 2/3 of the way through the triennium, if you like, and it hasn't really been addressed.
Yes.
So there's a lot of councillors that are starting to get a little bit antsy with regards to coming into the election process, having gone, well, we asked for this to be addressed at the beginning of the term. And that's going to put a lot of people in a very awkward position if it comes to responding to the community in this space.
Absolutely, and that's where the education is key. So it's just about making everyone aware of what that is. Unfortunately, the process is where it is, and until we go through that process, we're probably not going to have those answers, but we can have those conversations.
And I just thought it important to voice that so we can have those conversations. To me, that's part of what this forum's all about.
And that's my take, is that's what you're looking for, not a stare of what are we doing, when are we doing it. It's about what does that conversation conversation look like when it comes up, so that we're all in a safe space when we're talking about it?
Yeah, and also, should we say, nudging the need to have that conversation
Yep.
along as well.
Definitely. Do we have any comments online around that? Kyle? I don't see any more lights on around the table. So I think that was the end of our general business. I think there was no other kaupapa that came up. So if we now will move to number 7. Now, number 7 and 8 I'm going to join together because we've, I think we mentioned before, they kind of go hand in hand. And I'm just going to firstly go to Rawiri to see if there are any updates from Atiawa that we need to be considering in this space. Rawiri?
Kia ora. Look, I think one critical take or kaupapa that is facing us in the second quarter, of course, is the Ka Rewa Urupa hearing, where Te Atiawa will be presenting to KCDC in support of its schedule change, making Ka Rewa wahi tapu. I just wanted to reach out to our art whanaunga for their support. I'm sure they will support, and of course the Ngāti Raukawa have, and Ngāti, all our whanaunga have reason for that in regards to Ka Rewa. Atiawa will be leading that hearing submission. But we appreciate any tautoko from our te whanaunga. Just wanted to reiterate the criticality of Ka Rewa Urupa Te Atiawa, and for that matter Raukawa, given the significance as for Atiawa as a mana whenua, if you like, Gallipoli point, a nation building for Te Atiawa in terms of when it did maintain the po in that space through Kuititanga. And I also wanted to not let successive local government crown entities forget their collusion and complicity in our loss of parts of our urupa, which now have houses sitting on them, and change in schedules and now the proposal to change it back to what it should be. I wanted to reiterate to our mayor and our chief executive just how critical this is to us as a iwi, and that we tautoko their changing the schedule to bring our urupa back as a wahi tapu. So yeah, I just wanted to put that back, really bring it to the fore for this forum, that what's pending sometime in the second quarter, that hearing on that schedule change. And I think that's enough from me that's one focus that I needed to communicate here to you all. So, yeah, kia ora.
Just a quick question, Rawiri. Could you confirm the dates of that so we can...
No, the dates haven't been given as yet. We believe there'll be sometime April, May. It's likely May, but dates haven't been confirmed as yet for the hearing.
Be great if when they are confirmed you can let us know so we can...
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah. Great. Huriwai, is there anything happening on the tour horizons that we need to be aware of?
There's plenty happening on the Ngāti tour.
Anything relevant?
No, nothing to really raise at this forum. Just a lot of activities.
Great. Is Auntie Denise still online? I can't see. Okay, so she's back. So I have nothing really to raise from the Hapa Ōtaki, just apart from the ongoing discussions, probably the Māori wards higher on our agenda at the moment. And just Hada's just informed me that the team will seek to contact us all about restarting our iwi forum dates and putting that into our calendars. So if I go to my little run sheet here, we do have, moving on to point 9, updates from council. So if the Mayor or Councillor Halliday have anything to share with us. Oh, sorry, I've just seen Lawrence's light come on.
Sorry, I was just when you were talking about any updates from Raukawa and Ngāhapu, I was just wanting to acknowledge the event on Waitangi Day that Ngāhapu hosted for our district. Wonderful
Seem to have
event.
lost audio.
Have we lost audio online? Would you like to repeat that?
Sure. Can you hear all right now online? Yep, thumbs up, great.
Yeah.
Just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge Ngāhapu and their hosting of our Waitangi Day celebrations for the district. Amazing day and great turnout and great weather. It's really great to see that venue being used for a community activity. So just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that from our space. Thank you.
Kia ora. Yes, it was a great day, and I just want to mihi to just quickly, before I go to you, Janet, quickly to the girls. So Carly and Pania, who were heavily involved in all the mahi leading up to that, they made sure that that process was a really mana and heart thing and robust one, and we were really glad to have them alongside us. And also Bex and, sorry, the name has gone. Rain. So they made that process so easy, and we celebrated that day together. And it was a great day. It was a great day, a coming together of us, council, our art whanaunga, and the community. So it was really beautiful. It's really tired after it, but I was very happy. Me, Janet.
I'd just like to acknowledge the Farrell whānau and Ngāhapu or Ngāti Haumia, sorry. It's been a huge loss with Carl passing since our last hui, and really just feeling for Beryl, Levi, and Halen, Grace, the whānau, and also acknowledging how difficult it is for that hapu with such small numbers and such so many who've left the area, and some unfinished business in terms of the level of compensation for the land that was taken for Queen Elizabeth Park. And just to update that we're still carrying on with that work. I've got a hui coming up with Barbara Edmonds and Jenny Rowan just to have a little bit of a nut out about how to go forward, and Sophie Hanford I'm sure will be supporting that work as well, and also the local community. So we're still carrying on with that kaupapa, and the community will be supporting the Farrell whānau as much as possible. We'll miss you, Carl.
And also just thinking about that, what is our role as mana whenua art in that space? I know that there's a lot of involvement in the end. It's trucking along, but just really just being mindful, not having an action to it, but just being mindful that it's going on, and just keeping an eye on it, kind of thing, to see where we can and can't support. So Martin, do you have anything to add?
No, look, I brought up some points a bit earlier, which I think we need to address. Other than that, obviously, the attendance of meetings that you obviously had quite a lot there, Kim, I dare say means you're up to speed generally with what's going on. As such, as we know, that's pretty broad. But I think a big thing, if I was to say anything, would be the Three Waters as the kaupapa of the moment, and the repercussions of all that as well. And Yeah, it's without predetermining. The council's leaning towards doing this on our own, which
Yeah.
from that mana whenua interaction, shall we say,
Yeah.
means not a heck of a lot will change, I dare say.
Yeah.
But and that's I just really emphasises the importance of the strength of the relationship as such. Yeah, we'll see how that all evolves, but it's evolving quickly. That's certainly the case, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, and when there are risks, there are opportunities as well. So we just need to kind of think about what that means.
Definitely.
Great. So next on our agenda, we have item 11, which is future agenda requests. Can I ask that we, and as long as our mana whenua representatives agree, that if we have any agenda requests, that we get them in earlier rather than leaving them to this time as they arise, if we could get them into the team so that we can feed them into the agenda. Yeah. But if we have any, do we have any online that we want to note now? Future agenda requests? Kyle, I'm not seeing anything pop up, so I'll just move on. And we are at the end, and we're at, actually, have I missed something? Have we approved the minutes?
Yep, we do that.
Okay, great. Okay. Great. Well, thank you all for coming, and I'll ask Dawiri to close us out with a closing karakia.
Kia tau, kia rātou katoa, te ata whai o tō tātou are ki au hukarauti, me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake.
Amen. Kia ora. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Got him.